Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. It doesn't seem that long ago that I read a story about a Lower Merion mother who pulled her children out of the public school and was single-handedly taking on the school board in the name of parents' rights concerning their children's education. So I contacted the woman, invited her to the studio, and she blew me away. Elana Fishbein is a force to be reckoned with. They haven't forgotten her in Lower Merion, and now she and a cohort of like-minded mothers and community leaders around the country are holding school boards accountable. Their mantra, no left turn in education, not indoctrination. Welcome, Elana, again to 30 Minutes.
Thank you for having me.
Always
again.
good to see you because you, first of all, you're a ball of energy, and I believe in your cause. And you have been relentless. You've overcome any number of obstacles, not the least of which is how do you raise enough money to wage a campaign against the pretty entrenched forces that are working against you. I think this is our fourth visit.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think it's our fourth visit. But as I said, every time it's a little new. For those of you who may not be familiar with the full story of what happened and what impelled you to do this, what happened back in Lower Merion way back when?
Way back when, it does on one hand looks like an ancient history, but what happened then still very much alive today and even worse. Back then that was COVID time and the kids had distance learning. And toward the end of the school year, that was June 2020, the school decided in the wake of the George Floyd death to change the curriculum. And part of that change included really what I consider to be very racist material. And they imposed this curriculum on the children. When my husband and I looked at the material that they were planning to teach the next day, we immediately wrote the teachers and the principal, and we opted our kids out of the classes, and our kids indeed did not participate. And at dinner, we explained to them why they're not going to be joining their classmate the next day in the class. Still distance learning. After school was over, just a couple days later, I wrote a letter to the superintendent, the school board, and the principal, questioning really the purpose of this kind of teaching. What are they trying really to accomplish? They never replied till this day, obviously, and we're talking about almost actually 4 years ago. June, it will be 4 years. They really was very symptomatic of what we have been experiencing mostly since then. School board, superintendent were not working for us. I mean, the superintendent is paid by our tax money, but they don't feel that they need to be accountable for us, so they don't even bother replying to our letters or to our concerns. So I waited. Everybody was really at home, and I tried to reach our community and trying to ask if anybody else in our community, in our school community, has seen the material or concerned about it. And I shared with them the letter that I wrote to the superintendent and the school board. And then I was attacked viciously on social media, calling me all the names in the book, racist and bigots and not in our community, take her down, and indeed. They actually removed me from the school parents' Facebook page and any other, Facebook page in the community. That bothered me to some extent, but what bothered me really the most and led me to initiate and launch the movement was the fact that I got a lot of messages from parents who agreed with me completely, but expressed fear of speaking up. And this is still a problem today. A lot of people who agree with what we believe in and agree that the school board and the schools are doing the wrong thing by our children. They are indoctrinating them, not teaching them what they need in order to succeed in life. But people are afraid.
One important part, though, that speaks to the courage that you and your family have had. Your home was vandalized.
Yes.
You were threatened.
A lot on social media.
Yes.
Mostly on social media, a lot of threats, that's right. But, in fact, I have a file on my computer of all the people that send me threats, and because one day, I don't know, if God forbid something happen, at least maybe the police will have a thread, to start with. But this cannot scare us. This is their tactic. We see it everywhere. Their tactic is terror. Terror can have many forms. Definitely verbal, cancel culture, violence, physical violence. Violence has many forms. So I was committed to the fact that I'm more afraid what will happen if I don't get involved. It was more threatening to me than actually getting involved. And in fact, today we see how far they have gone, particularly with the spread of the anti-Semitism on college campuses and how it trickles down also to schools, K to 12. Our society has been shaken now to the core with what's happening in our colleges and university campuses and on our street as well.
4 years ago, when you started, did you foresee the day when your experience would result in a national movement, which is what you have now, no left turn in education?
In fact, I was lucky because shortly, even before I launched the movement, I got a story in the Washington Free Beacon covering what happened to me in Lower Merion. And that got a national exposure. And I was invited to Tucker Carlson Tonight Show when he was still on Fox. So basically 3 weeks after I launched the movement, I was already on a national TV in the biggest watched rated show on TV. And overnight, it became national movement. Within less than a week, probably about a week, we got over 1 million people on our Facebook page wanting to join, sharing their experiences, sharing their fears and anxiety and hopelessness and helplessness. And that's really how we launched into a national movement very early on, more than 3 years ago, in fact.
Since you started, though, there have been other parents' organizations that have propped up around the country, essentially the same issue: parents' rights in education, holding school boards accountable, and that means in elections getting the right people on school boards. So to that extent, have you had competition, or do you welcome more people, other groups? And do you collaborate in any way with the other groups?
We definitely collaborate. I don't think we have enough. I don't think this is a huge country. This country, we have between 15 to 16,000 school boards. So we have a lot of needs around the country, even in red state. People are mistaken often to think that in red state or even red regions in a state, there is no problem. On the contrary, they're the ones that are most targeted by the woke forces like the teachers union and the others because they think that they are sleepy. If you go to rural Pennsylvania, to rural Missouri, to other states that you would think that there were very solid red areas, but you'll find out that they're coming after our kids in all school boards around the country. So the issue is not, we don't have enough people actually rising and fighting. Yes, things have improved a lot. In the beginning, as I said, little by little, people were joining, but there were a lot of fear of speaking up. I ended up doing a lot of the interviews from our organization, actually all the interviews, because people were afraid. But over time, now you see a lot of parents confronting school board. You see the videos on YouTube or any other social media. We definitely expose them as well to give courage to other parents and community members to stand up and speak up. We would really like to see more and more people around the country getting up and speaking up. With regard to school board, it's really very tricky. First of all, I would say, like in every politics, it's local. Local. Indeed, what determines your day-to-day life in your community, in your home, is what happened in the local politics. Still, this requires enormous resources in order to fight the school boards. The kind of resources that the other side has plenty of, because they are supported by mega donors, not only George Soros, they have many of them, as well as the teachers union. On our side, unfortunately, our people with the big pocket did not rise to the occasion. They do understand, but they did not rise to the occasion to support organizations like ours and others. So we really have to rethink even the strategy. Still, school board are very important. It's very important to try and capture school board seats. But you have to remember, those seats are up for election every 2-3 years. That means it required a constant effort with a lot of backing, which unfortunately, as I said, our camp does not have like the other camp, because our camp is mostly mostly volunteer. The other camp are a lot of people on our tax money.
You mentioned the teachers union. Have you felt resistance from the teachers union?
Of course, the teachers union everywhere. They're very strong. They get involved in a lot of the school board elections, and they are teachers in the classroom. In fact, many teachers go and be very active during school board election. Not only some of them also get on school board, but also they're very active campaigning and recruiting and getting people to vote for their candidates, which are not necessarily, I would say in most cases, they're not representing the wishes of the community and the wishes of the parents that send their kids to school. That's why there is the conflict.
This network that you have of parents and community leaders around the country, do they operate autonomously, or are they held together by bylaws or agreements of some kind as to how they will operate in their local community that's consistent with the overall movement? Am I making myself clear?
Yeah, it's really very loose.
It is?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Not really. That's one of the other things that has set us apart from, and not in a good way, from the other camp, which is they're very coordinated. They are lockstep. They are, they march to the same drum beat. We are not. Part of it you can understand as being conservatives. We are independent-minded. We think we respect everybody's thinking and everybody. At the other side, they are really, like communism. They are all in lockstep, and they are and our side is really not good in coordinating. However, there are some more good organizations, national, very established, like Alliance Defending Freedom, that generating a lot of effort to bring other organizations together and to promote some legislation or some action on the national level and support local level. So, for example, one of the efforts from about a couple months ago was to have, I forgot the exact name at this point of that bill that they promoted at the Congress for advancing parental rights, protecting parental rights. But we have to remember, this is on the national level, and the essence of it is to withhold funding, federal funding, from states and from schools or school districts that promote this racist and sexual ideology. But this is on the federal level. Again, we need the effort on state level as well. And that's where it's critical.
I've done a lot of work with early stage companies, startup companies and so on. And you are a startup. You're an early stage venture. Normally, therefore, there would be a need for a revision, change, fine-tuning of your strategy. Are you at the point where you have to step back and say, we've got to begin to do things differently?
Definitely, because things have changed since we launched the movement a lot around the country. We started with building chapters because there were demand in many places across the country. We had many chapters in many states, but maintaining this kind of structure is very challenging, to say the least. And I think other national organizations that launched shortly after me, which tried also to go the chapter way, actually experiencing the same thing. It's very challenging to maintain unless you have really major donors that can support local efforts. So we are seeing actually more effort on the local level, but I get approached by, for example, a group from Massachusetts. Can you help us? We're a group of parents, we're community members. Can you guide us? Can you help us? Not long ago, I got from another place in Pennsylvania. So there are people who are trying, but they don't know how to start. They don't know what to do. So we are providing a resource for those people. But it is not as simple. So what we felt that when we launched, what was really critical is to educate the people. Nobody heard about CRT, critical race theory.
Yes.
Nobody heard about queer theory. Nobody knew about transgenderism. I mean, all these issues, 1619 Project, all these issues were like, what is it exactly? So I did not know myself. And in fact, we didn't know what a school board is. What do they do? How they get elected? What their responsibilities? What is their authority? The superintendent. So all this was really new to people because we were leading our life, raising kids, going to church,
and
having community,
trusting them,
and completely blindly trusting that the school system has the best interests of our kids and families in mind. And with the distance learning, we were exposed to what's happening behind closed doors and behind the gates of the school. And we were terrified. Many parents were terrified. So when, again, a big part was educating ourselves, educating the parents, educating the community, and understanding also the long-term consequences on the child life, on the family life, on the community life, and on the country as a whole, because this kind of ideology is really a threat. It's existential threat to our nation.
Have you received any support, formal support, not just sympathy, from any major politicians, either national or state?
You can hear the politicians that actually support our cause, support parents. However, we are 501c3, so we cannot be really seeking to support candidates, etc. However, you can hear it in the media. Many of legislators who are pushing for parental rights legislation, or some even small part of legislation, such as transparency of what's happening in school. But it's growing.
But there's another structure. You're a 501c3, but there's another one. I can't think of the name.
C4?
Yeah, C4.
That's right.
So you would be able to lobby and otherwise advocate.
This is what, when we talked about restructuring and refocusing, this is one of the issues that we are going to bring to our board next week, because indeed we are considering either adding a C4 or
for political advocacy.
So we can do absolutely, because it's allowed by law.
Right.
At the same time, there are differences. For example, donation to 501c3 are tax deductible. You can write them off. Donation to C4 are not. So for some people, it is important. There are also super PACs. And there is LLC. There are different forms. We're going to have a meeting today, actually, with a lawyer, one of our members from Connecticut, who specializes in non-for-profit. And we are discussing the different options. And we'll have to make a decision because we're going to present it next week to the board and see which way we are going. But the issue is really from parents not knowing what's happening and needing information and starting to help them get together and organize and start stand up and know how to speak up in front of school board or education committees at the house level at their state.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Elana, there must be days when you and your family, because it's not just you, your family supports you in this, there must be days when it's enough. Let somebody else do it. I've taken it this far. More people are aware of it now, which was your primary mission. So let somebody else take the next leg. I've had enough. There are days like that.
Absolutely,
I'm sure.
absolutely.
So
because
what keeps you going? What keeps you going?
I was 24/7 around it. I neglected my health. I have 11 and 13 years old. So you can imagine I
Yes.
started almost 4 years ago. So they were much younger. I have a husband. So we have family in the end. However, what's happening around the country today is so scary. But again, it's more scary if you let it happen and not do anything. You have to get up, otherwise we're losing our country. We always say what happens to the Jews is like the Jews are the canary in the coal mine. Mm-hmm. And what we are seeing around the country with radical forces on college campuses and universities and on our streets that are getting up, attacking physically people just because of what they believe. So today it's the Jews. Who's going to be tomorrow? All of us are targets. And when you look around the world, we are communicating weakness. United States is communicating weakness, fragility, and that's very dangerous to our existence in this country, to our freedoms.
You were in Israel recently, right?
That's right. I have all my family lives in Israel. Most of them live not far from the Gaza border. They experienced more than a quarter of the rockets were targeted at that town. My son actually served on the Lebanon and Syria border. He's American.
Your son?
My son, yeah. My oldest son, he's going to be 23 this month. He went to volunteer and support our nation, our homeland, and this is not easy. So I went to visit him. I went to see my family. I went to see my country, my friends. I wish our country here will have the spirit of the people of Israel. They're resilient. They're committed. They love the country. They know in Israel that they don't have any other place to go. We have experience of thousands of years running from one place to another, hiding. And that's why I launched my movement. I knew I'm fighting for our country here. We cannot hide because they're not going to stop. We had the Holocaust, and we know what happened to the Jews that thought they can hide or pretend or whatever. We build Israel so we can defend ourselves, have a homeland. We have a wonderful country here. We have a home with freedom. We must not give it up. We must stand up and fight for our freedom, fight for our rights to live here as free and prosperous nation. Fight for our Bill of Rights, fight for our Constitution. This is our home. We don't have any other home. So we better get up and fight.
What about grandparents? I mean, you focused on parents. But what about the 73 million grandparents, many of whom, millions of whom, are raising their grandchildren, as you know? What about them? Have you mobilized them as well?
They were among the best volunteers that we had. The best. They're committed. They know how good is this country.
Yeah.
And they're very scared to think of what country they are leaving toward their grandchildren. They're wonderful supporters. They're very committed. And they're brave. They're more brave than their children. The grandparents are more brave than their own children. Many times they say, I don't have anything to lose. I have to protect my grandchildren. Yes, we are counting on the grandparents, and we are saluting the grandparents. And don't forget, many of them fought for the freedom of this country.
Yes.
Either in the Second World War, in Korea, in Vietnam. They know how precious is this freedom that we have here.
Do you see a counter movement developing, though? What I mean is, there are certain colleges and universities, most recently and most notably University of Florida, where you would expect it. The University of Florida has gotten rid of its DEI function, disbanded it, and is now using $5 million to help recruit faculty. Some large investment companies are abandoning the environment, et cetera, the criteria
ESG.
they were using
ESG.
Yes, for
Environmental,
investments because
social,
it doesn't work, it
and-
doesn't produce
yeah.
profits.
On the contrary.
Yeah. So do you see evidence of a counter trend developing?
You have Hillsdale College, also don't forget, and there are a handful. There are a
Yes.
handful.
Yes. But it's a beginning.
But that's a very good beginning. That's a very good beginning. It's also a very good beginning to see donors to those fancy universities who have, like Harvard, $1 billion or more in endowments, and Penn right here, University of Pennsylvania. That's actually my alma mater. That's where I got my doctorate in social work. So seeing, some of those colleges and universities getting their donation by major donors pulled away, as well as probably small donors, people who graduated from those schools that are not necessarily billionaires or millionaires, but are giving steadily to those universities, are pulling their donations.
But you think
and more than that, parents who are not sending their kids to those schools, which is very, very important.
But you think it's only a blip and it will revert?
It's a trend.
You think it is an honest to God trend?
A trend that I believe we don't have a choice. We have what's happening again because of I think with the pushing on the anti-Semitic front, I think that's actually the turning point. I believe that's the turning point, that it went so far, it exposed how ridiculous, radical they are, and that they will not stop at nothing. So people are waking up, say, hello, this is not just BLM, nice, Black Lives Matter. But Black Lives Matter is the same thing, by the way. They were the same thing. But now we are waking up to see how far they go. When you have Queer for Palestine, one of the most outrageous, concept, because any queer that goes to so-called Palestine, to Gaza, they're not going to survive for 5 minutes because they're going to shoot them or throw them off the rooftop. So all these things that don't make sense, that are insane, they're really, I think, we are starting, because of the rampant anti-Semitism on campus, we're going to see the turning point.
But they're still a minority.
I'm not talking about Jews. I'm talking about
No,
people
not
who
the
are
Jews.
with moral.
I'm saying
the other side.
The ideologues who are fomenting all of this on campuses and so on, they're still a minority, a vocal minority.
Absolutely right. And in fact, from the very, very beginning, when I launched the movement, I said it in many interviews, probably on your interview as well, that I don't believe that they make even 5% of the population. No. I don't believe. However, if you look at the so-called mainstream media, who is becoming their trumpet, or some big donors that they have from, like Amazon or, Rite Aid or other big, corporates that have been supporting them, I believe they're going to be scaling down. All those corporate money that was to go to them, I think they'll be scaling down because it's going to be affecting their business. But again, you're absolutely right. It hasn't changed. They're minority, but they're coming together. Like I said, queer coming together with Voices for Palestine, whatever, Justice for Palestine. All those little groups coming together and making a lot of noise. And there are violence. It scares people. It does scare people. But there are minority. That's why we are the majority. We just have to be courageous enough to stand up and protect our country.
As you rethink your strategy, I don't think your mission is going to change.
That's right.
Right. But as you rethink your strategy, will there be more emphasis on trying to influence legislation?
That's right.
At the federal and state level?
That's right.
And less emphasis on local
school
politics and school boards?
We'll always, encourage, definitely. But what we found out that a lot of those issues, including the transparency and the books, et cetera, actually you put them all under the umbrella of parental rights. Because really those are basic things. Because what happened with the schools, and they're still pushing, for example, they're pushing the idea of community schools, and there are some communities that it's already exists there. They want to take over the role of the parents. They want us to deposit our kids early in the morning, pick them up in the evening. They'll take care of everything. They'll they'll create the mental health problems in our kids' life, but they will come and solve them as well. They create them, they want to solve them. No, I don't want them to create them. I don't want to solve them. And by the way, very important to mention, a central piece of this parental right, I call parental choice, which is actually more known as school choice. Let our taxes follow the parents that know what fits best for the child. Money follow the child, not the teachers, not the school system, not the politician. Money follow the child. Let the parents make the choice of what best school fits their children's needs.
It pains me to cut you off, but we've run out of time. I'm so sorry.
We can continue next time.
Always a pleasure. My guest today has been Elana Fishbein, a force for good in her community and communities around the country. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.